hit 9,276 of COVID-19 infections and 72 deaths, respectively. That is the latest report here in Bangkok, Thailand. Alma, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Gretchen, for your updates there. And looking forward to more developments as we follow this developing story. Please take care.
Thank you, Alma. This is Gretchen Kusalsa reporting from Bangkok, Thailand. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, JP Morgan said there are 5 emerging economies that are most vulnerable to the Delta variant. And Thailand and the Philippines are included. Here's Veronica Carino for that report.
Hello, good afternoon, Alma. Yes, JP Morgan analysis found that economies of the Philippines, Peru, Colombia, South Africa, and Thailand are among the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 Delta variant within emerging markets, mostly due to low vaccination rates. The study compares the spread of the virus Delta variant to the rate of vaccination, which in some countries is not fast enough to counteract increasing transmission rates. Even if the Delta variant is demonstrated to reduce hospitalization and death rates, the report warns that pressure on healthcare system and an increase in the absolute number of deaths could result, putting pressure on some governments to extend or reimpose mobility restrictions. According to a separate note from Oxford Economics, significant economic activity is rebounding in Latin America as a result of increased mobility. According to the JP Morgan analysis, vaccination criteria for restoring mobility differ by country. Thus, the result should be viewed as a relative success across countries. According to model estimates, the Philippines, Peru, South Africa, Thailand, and Colombia will have the longest travels back to the pre-pandemic mobility levels, while Singapore, Turkey, India, and Brazil would have the shortest. In Latin America, authorities have been less likely to reimpose or lengthen mobility restrictions, the report said. While the region has shown remarkable resilience in the face of the virus and other obstacles, downside risks to growth could yet emerge from the impact of poor public health on confidence, even if the upward mobility trend continues. This update is from the Reuters. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your update. Take care and have a safe weekend.
Thank you, and likewise, happy Friday. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
9 million people in Ho Chi Minh City have been ordered into lockdown, state media said on Wednesday, as the commercial hub struggles to contain Vietnam's most serious COVID-19 outbreak so far. Beginning in the early hours of Friday, residents will be mandated to stay at home for 2 weeks after 8,000 cases were recorded in the city during the latest virus wave. Prior to this outbreak, which began in late April, fewer than 3,000 cases had been recorded across Vietnam. All the virus clusters have appeared up and down the country, including in the northern industrial provinces of Bac Ninh and Bac Giang, home to factories supplying Samsung and Foxconn. Ho Chi Minh City has emerged as the epicenter of the wave. Nguyen Than Phong, Ho Chi Minh City mayor, said Wednesday that the city was facing challenges in controlling the pandemic, according to state-run news outlet Vietnam Express. Deputy Prime Minister Vu Duc Dam told Ho Chi Minh City authorities earlier that it was time for us to accept sacrifices to ensure long-term development. Residents will be allowed to leave home only to buy food or medicine, state media said. At least 10 cities have suspended their air links with Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, and panic buying was reported on Wednesday as 3 major wholesale markets were shut down. The Southeast Asian Games, which were due to take place in Vietnam this year, have been postponed because of the pandemic and will most likely be held in 2022. Here's Micah Gwinnett Apostle joining us live today. Hi, Micah.
Hello, Ralph. Here's the latest news for that. The regional Olympics were scheduled to be held in Hanoi, and 11 other locations from November 21 to December 2. But Vietnam is struggling to contain a new coronavirus outbreak, and many Southeast Asian Games events were planned in provinces hard hit by the fresh wave of infections. Varin Tansufasiri, Games Council member and Deputy Secretary of the Thai Olympic Committee, said Vietnam wants to postpone the Games until next year, 2022. The postponement was expected to the pandemic, he said, with Vietnam proposing to host the Games in April or May next year. The decision comes after Vietnam announced 9 million people in Ho Chi Minh City would go into lockdown for 2 weeks in the early hours of Friday. Hanoi, which was to be at the center of the SEA Games, has had fewer cases, but on Thursday suspended transport links with at least 14 cities and provinces to fight the virus spread. Virus clusters have appeared up and down the country, including in the northern industrial provinces of Bac Ninh and Bac Giang, where Games events were due to take place. Vietnam previously hosted the SEA Games in 2003. It has allocated a budget of around $69 million for the Games. The multi-sports competition is expected to attract nearly 20,000 participants, including about 7,000 athletes from 11 countries, according to state media. Back to you, Ralph.
All right. Thanks for that, Micah. Thank you for your updates. Please keep them coming. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Micah Gwyneth Apostle. We live in interesting times.
And from Vietnam, let's head on to Cambodia, where Crystal Ann Ballesteros will tell us about the COVID vaccines. They may produce their own COVID vaccines in the future. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma, you are right. Mam Bun Heng, or Minister of Health, says that Ministry of Health may work in the future with the health sector to discuss setting up a possible vaccine production center. In an interview with Fresh News, the minister said he had met with Champrasid, Minister of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation, to discuss the matter. The minister added that the Ministry of Health is considering and suggesting that in the future, the ministry would like to organize a gathering of health experts to discuss the establishment of a COVID-19 vaccine production center. He also added that the ministry will also consider the expansion of traditional medicines that have been used to treat various diseases. While Cambodia's current COVID-19 cases is 59,045, with active cases of 7,213, 855 deaths, and 5,917 recovered. And that's a quick update of what's happening here in Cambodia. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Crystal, for your time. Have a safe weekend.
Likewise, Alma, reporting live here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we live in interesting times.
And let's go back to the Philippines, where President Duterte vowed to go after sellers of fake COVID-19 vaccines in the country. In a pre-recorded public address, the president issued a stern warning against unscrupulous individuals selling fake vaccines, or they suffer the consequences of their actions. Take a look.
We order every relevant authority to investigate this matter thoroughly and press charges accordingly.
Now, last Monday afternoon, the president welcomed the arrival of 1 million doses of CoronaVac COVID vaccine purchased by the government from the Chinese drug maker Sinovac Biotech. A total of 700 million pesos was spent by the government for the purchase of the 1 million doses of CoronaVac. And in total, the government intends to buy 25 million doses of CoronaVac. The previous 2 shipments of CoronaVac, totaling to 1 million doses, were donations from the Chinese government. And the bulk of vaccine doses from various brands are expected to arrive by the second quarter of the year. The government aims to inoculate 50 million to 70 million Filipinos nationwide, but it's not making inoculation against COVID-19 mandatory.
Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles on Wednesday expressed confidence that population protection will be achieved before year-end as the number of coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 vaccines arriving in the country continues to increase. During the pre-State of the Nation address or SONA virtual presser, Nograles said the population protection target by end of 2021 is still achievable, considering that the country is expected to receive the biggest vaccine deliveries in July. Let's watch this.
Naman yan na pinaplano natin. So July, magkakaroon talaga ng surge ng vaccines na darating at agad naman natin i-deploy. And that is a good way to start the second half of the year. And we still remain confident na by before the end of 2021, 50 million to 70 million Filipinos will have been inoculated already. By the third quarter of 2021, halos by the end of the third quarter, we would be approaching already yung population protection. And so going towards that, we will be more confident in opening up more of the economy, getting people back to work. At dito na po natin mararamdaman yung tinatawag nating transition to the new normal. No? So it's not it's going to be a phase-by-phase approach. Kaya nga every week yung meeting natin ng IATF para unti-unti and safely natin bubuksan yung ekonomiya para makabalik tayo sa new normal or the normal way of doing things before. So things are looking up.
Palaging suot yan ha. Oo, pababa pa. Taas mo konti.
And staying in the Philippines, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said areas with high cases of COVID-19 infections will get AstraZeneca vaccines donated by Japan to the Philippines. Now this after the 1.124 million doses AstraZeneca arrived on board an All Nippon Airways flight around 9 p.m. Thursday at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. President Duterte and Japanese chargé d'affaires ad interim Masahiro Nakata led the turnover rites held at the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City. The donation was first announced by Japanese Foreign Minister Motegi Toshimitsu last June 15. 2 weeks later, the governments of Japan and the Philippines entered into a formal agreement on the vaccine provision with the signing and exchange of notes between Nakata and Foreign Affairs Secretary, Assistant Secretary Nathaniel Garcia Imperial. Now, Secretary Duque said the AstraZeneca vaccines will contribute to the Philippines' efforts of achieving population control. In a statement, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said the initiative is a clear testament to the deep-rooted bonds of friendship between Japan and the Philippines.
President Rodrigo Duterte on Thursday expressed gratitude to the Japanese government for its donation of more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine to the Philippines. During the turnover rites of 1,124,000 coronavirus disease jabs developed by AstraZeneca, Duterte thanked the Japanese government and Japanese Prime Minister for helping the Philippine government have an equitable access to vaccines. Duterte also thanked
These more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine will surely go a long way in our quest for herd immunity. Japan continues to be our strong partner in various development programs. Our cooperation in fighting the pandemic is truly an indication of the deep friendship between our two countries.
Duterte also thanked Japan for ensuring the safe and efficient delivery of AstraZeneca vaccines to the Philippines and preserving the jab's quality and integrity by providing cold chain transport and auxiliaries. The donation of the 1,124 vials of AstraZeneca vaccine to the Philippines is part of the Japanese government's initiatives to support Southeast Asian nations amid the pandemic. Get vaccinated, public urge anew. Following the arrival of AstraZeneca vaccines in the country, Duterte renewed his call on his fellow Filipinos to get vaccinated against COVID-19 to stop its further transmission. Duterte reassured the public that COVID-19 vaccines being delivered to the country are safe and effective. Duterte also reminded fully vaccinated individuals to continue following health and safety protocols amid the prevailing pandemic. He likewise lauded the National Task Force Against COVID-19 and the Department of Health for ensuring the successful delivery, distribution, and rollout of COVID-19 vaccines across the country. Indonesians have ignored health warnings to stock up on a miracle cure for COVID-19, backed by leading politicians and social media influencers, as an out-of-control virus surge sweeps the country. Authorities are reporting hundreds of deaths every day as the world's fourth most populous nation struggles with its worst outbreak since the pandemic began. Let's watch this.
Karena nakes di tempat kami sendiri, nakes internal kami sendiri juga sebenarnya banyak yang terkonfirmasi positif juga gitu. Jadi ya semuanya merasa kewalahan sih Pak. Dari nakes medis maupun non medis juga banyak yang kena. COVID yang sekarang ini benar-benar lebih jahat istilahnya daripada yang lalu, daripada yang gelombang pertama. Ini COVID yang sekarang ini benar-benar cepet banget untuk
Pharmacies across the country are running out of ivermectin, an oral treatment normally used to treat lice and other parasitic infections, thanks in part to viral social media posts touting its potential as a coronavirus treatment. Those who can bring a screenshot showing that ivermectin could cure COVID, said Yoyan, head of the pharmaceutical sales group at market at the capital Jakarta, who, like many Indonesians, goes by one name. He said that the shortage had pushed the price of the drug up from around 175,000 to 300,000 rupiah, or equivalent to 12 to 21 US dollars a bottle. Fueled by anti-vaccine and pandemic conspiracy theories online, there has been a surge in demand for the drug from Brazil to South Africa to Lebanon. But manufacturer Merck has said there was no scientific basis for a potential therapeutic effect against COVID-19 and warned of possible safety issues if the drug is administered inappropriately. Scientists, the World Health Organization, and several drug regulators, including Indonesia's own, have also stressed that there is a lack of credible evidence to show it works against COVID-19.
Meanwhile, Indonesia has expanded its nationwide curbs last Wednesday to battle its deadliest COVID wave yet, as the daily death toll rocketed past 1,000 and the government warned the worst may yet be to come. Now, or may be yet to come, the new restrictions will apply to dozens of cities and extend from Sumatra Island in the west to easternmost Papua, as the highly infectious Delta variant rips across the Southeast Asian archipelago. Now, many overwhelmed hospitals are refusing new patients, leaving scores to die at home, while cemetery workers race to bury the soaring number of bodies. Offices, mosques, parks, shopping malls, and restaurants have been shuttered across the hard-hit capital Jakarta and the main island of Java, as well as the holiday hotspot of Bali, under the new curbs that started from the weekend. But there are widespread reports of violations, including offices and shops still operating despite shutdown orders. The world's fourth most populous nation on Wednesday reported a record 34,379 new infections and 1,040 deaths, as much as 10 times the daily mortality rate less than a month ago. The wider restrictions announced on Wednesday include forcing the majority of non-essential employees to work from home, as well as limiting shop and restaurant hours. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Ralph and I will be right back.
sumali po kami ng PNA, mas lalong nagbago yung buhay po namin.
Nagbuhayan kami ng pag-asa na makasaya ulit ng sama-sama.
Gagawin namin yung best namin para makuha.
Lahat itatry namin para talaga makamit yung mga pangarap namin.
Ito na yung pangarap namin. Lalaban namin to.
This program is supported by Magnolia Incorporated. Magnolia ready-to-cook fried chicken. Worry-free na on your next family meal. Yang ang alagang Magnolia. Pure Foods Tender Juicy Hot Dog. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy Hot Dog. Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. BMAG Premium and ProTac Plus Gold. SMC Infrastructure and Skyway Stage 3 Citrus Central Expressway Corporation. San Miguel Foundation Incorporated. Max Pro Northern Cement. Lamang ka dito. Metron Corporation. SMC Global Power. San Miguel Aero City Incorporated. Bank of Commerce. An affiliate of San Miguel Corporation. We think customers. We are IT Philippines Incorporated. Dynabank, your success is our business.
Kubert, your ultimate maps air conditioning solutions.
Broadcast journalist Wayne De La Fuente returns on Philippine television and radio to deliver top stories and engage with the country's policymakers, shapers, and movers. Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng De La Fuente sa Balitalakayan.
Ako si Weng De La Fuente at itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. The World Bank apologized to the Philippine government over the inadvertent release of a report about the allegedly poor learning results among Filipino students. In a statement uploaded on its official website, the World Bank acknowledged that its report titled Improving Student Learning Outcomes and Well-Being in the Philippines, What Are International Assessments Telling Us, Volume 2, Synthesis Report Presentation was published sans any inputs from the Department of Education or the DepEd. They said, we deeply regret that the report on education was inadvertently published earlier than scheduled and before the Department of Education had enough chance to provide inputs. Now, this was an oversight on our part, and we conveyed our personal apologies in our communication with the government, it said. The World Bank said the report was already temporarily removed from its website. The World Bank report said that around 80% of Filipino students fall below the minimum proficiency levels as they don't know what they should know in school. Its report was based on 3 assessments participated by the Philippines, including the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, in 2018, the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, or TIMSS, in 2019, and the first cycle of the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Metrics, or the CPLM, in 2019. The 3 global assessments, the World Bank said, showed that only 10 to 20% of grade 4, 5, and 9 students in the Philippines posted scores of at or above minimum proficiency. The World Bank also said there is a crisis in the Philippine education, which started pre-COVID-19 and may have been made worse by the coronavirus pandemic. Now, as of press time, the World Bank report on Philippine education is being processed or is not available.
Restive Taal volcano has generated a total of 6 pre-atomagmatic bursts and 60 volcanic earthquakes for the past 24 hours. In its latest bulletin Thursday, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, said the last pre-atomagmatic burst was observed at 9:41 p.m. Wednesday, producing a short jetted plume up to 700 meters high. Let's take a look.
Tuloy-tuloy po ito sa initial na maliit lamang na nagsimula ng phreatic eruption na tinatawag, na kung saan ang pagsabog ay dahil lamang sa mainit na tubig at usok. Pero dahil po sa initial na phreatic eruption noong January 2020, umakyat ang magma ng mabilisan at nagkaroon nga ng paghalo ng magma at tubig at yun ay inilabas. So pagbago po ang inilabas na may magma na kasamang tubig, ay phreatic yung magmatic eruption po to. Kung magma lang, ang bagong material lang ang nilalabas, ay magmatic eruption ang tawag. Mas delikado po ito sa Taal Volcano kasi may tubig at mas nagiging eksplosibo ang kanyang pagsabog.
PHIVOLC's earlier data bared that 3 magmatic explosions were reported at 5:18 a.m., 8:46 a.m., 9:15 a.m., 9:26 a.m., and 11:56 in the morning. These phreatomagmatic eruptions lasted from 1 to 7 minutes. 60 volcanic quakes are caused by movements or eruptions of magma from the volcano. The figure includes 5 explosion-type earthquakes, 24 low-frequency volcanic earthquakes, 21 volcanic tremor events having durations of 2 to 4 minutes, 10 hybrid earthquakes, and low-level background tremors that ease at 6:21 p.m. but resume at 9:52 in the evening. Hybrid earthquakes indicate rock fracturing and magma or fluid movement. High levels of SO2 gas emissions averaging at 11,397 tons per day and steam-rich plumes that rose 1,500 meters high were also reported. Taal volcano has been under alert level 3, magmatic unrest, since July 1st after PHIVOLC's reported a short-lived dark phreatomagmatic plume 1 kilometer high in the afternoon. PHIVOLC's reminded the public that under this level, magma extruding from the main crater could drive explosive eruption. Entry into Taal Volcano Island and into the high-risk barangays of Agoncillo and Laurel must be prohibited due to the hazards of pyroclastic density, currents, and volcanic tsunami should strong eruptions occur, it said. Last July 1, PHIVOLC's recommended complete evacuation in the TVI, Taal Lake, Agoncillo, Batangas, Banyaga, Bilibinwang, and Laurel, Batangas, Gulod, Boso-Boso, Lakeshore, Bugaan East.
To Myanmar now, where the UN rights chief warned that the dire situation there since its February 1 coup was driving the countries towards possible civil war and could spark regional insecurity. Speaking before the UN Human Rights Council, Michelle Bachelet lamented that Myanmar in recent months has evolved from a political crisis to a multidimensional human rights catastrophe. Take a look.
Distinguished President, Excellencies. Recent month, the situation in Myanmar has evolved from a political crisis to a multidimensional human rights catastrophe. Suffering and violence throughout the country are devastating prospects for sustainable development and raise the possibility of state failure or a broader civil war. As a coup by the Myanmar military has rapidly morphed into an attack against the civilian population that has become increasingly widespread and systematic. Nearly 900 people have been killed. Some 200,000 people have been forced to flee their homes as a result of violent military raids on neighborhoods and villages. The World Food Programme estimates that over 6 million people are severely in need of food aid. UNDP forecasts that nearly half the population could be forced into poverty by early 2022. A void has been opened for the most harmful and criminal forms of illicit economy to flourish. Since the 1st of February, at least 240 attacks on healthcare facilities, medical personnel, ambulances, and patients have been seriously disabled, COVID-19 testing, treatment, and vaccination. Meanwhile, mass displacement and continued protests heighten the risk of contagion. The coup has exacerbated a number of long-running conflicts in Myanmar's borderlands. Fighting has resumed in Kachin, Kayin, and northern Shan states, as well as other areas such as Chin and Kaya states that have been largely peaceful in recent years. Military forces have repeatedly conducted indiscriminate airstrikes and artillery shelling, killing civilians, displacing tens of thousands of people, and destroying protected civilian structures such as schools and places of worship. Thousands of people have sought refuge in neighboring countries. Laws have been instrumentalized to stifle freedom of expression, curb independent media as well as social media, and arbitrarily detain at least 5,200 people. Over 90 journalists have been arrested, and 8 major media outlets have been closed. We have also received multiple reports of enforced disappearances, brutal torture and death in custody, and the arrest of relatives or children in lieu of the person being sought. Despite these levels of repression, the military leadership has not been successfully secure control of Myanmar, nor the international recognition it seeks. On the contrary, its brutal tactics have triggered a national uprising that has changed the political equation. But despair is rising. Some people in many parts of Myanmar have taken up arms and formed self-protection groups. These newly formed armed opposition groups have launched attacks in several locations to which the security forces have responded with disproportionate.
Since the coup, nearly 900 people have been killed, while about 200,000 have been forced to flee their homes. At the same time, at least 5,200 people have been arbitrarily arrested, including more than 90 journalists, according to UN numbers, while 8 major media outlets have been forced to close.
Ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi and her personal staff have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 since being taken into military custody, her lawyer said Tuesday as the country battles a spike in cases. Let's take a look.
အမေကဒုံကဘာယောဂလက္ခဏာမှခံစားနေရတဲ့ပုံမရှိပါဘူးကြမ်းမမှာရှင်ရှင်လန်းလန်းပါပဲအမေအပါအဝင်အမေ channel မှာရှိတဲ့လူတွေအကုန်လုံးကိုဗစ်ကို2ကြိမ်စလုံးထိုးပြီးပါပြီလို့ပြောပါတယ်ရှင်ကိုဗစ်နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးအထူးသတိထားဖို့လည်းထပ်ပြီးပြောပါတယ်ရှင်အခုတော်တော်လေးကိုကိုဗစ်ကပြင်းထန်နေတယ်လို့ကြားရတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်စိုးရိမ်ဒီသူစိတ်ပူတယ်ဆိုတဲ့အကြောင်းကတော့ပြောတယ်ပို့ပြီးတော့မှအရင်ကာလနဲ့မတူဘဲနဲ့ပြင်းထန်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့လို့ကာကွယ်ဆေးတွေထိုးလို့ရရင်လည်းထိုးကြပါလို့မှာတယ်ပြီးတော့ဒီပို့ပြီးခရူးထိုက်နေထိုင်ကြဖို့ပြည်သူတွေချင်းချင်းလဲတယောက်နဲ့ပေါ့နော်အကုန်လုံးဒီကျမရေးအတွက်ခယူပြရမယ်ဒီကန်တက်ချက်တွေတမစ်ချက်တွေခယူတဆိုင်နဲ့ပြည်သူတွေချင်းချင်းလဲလောက်ကြဖို့ပြောပါတယ်
Suu Kyi has been all but invisible since being detained by the military in February, with a handful of court appearances in a special court in Nai Pi Dao, her only link to the outside world. Coronavirus infections are rising sharply in Myanmar, with authorities reporting almost 3,000 cases Monday, up from around 100 per day in early June. The impoverished country of 54 million is rushing to secure more vaccines after receiving 1.5 million doses from India and 500,000 from China earlier this year. She did not give details on when Suu Kyi, who is believed to have received a first dose before her government was deposed, had received the jab or what vaccine she was given. Around 10 people are thought to be living with the Nobel laureate, 7-6 in the house she is being held in, including personal guards and cooks. The court also heard testimony on separate charges that Suu Kyi broke COVID restrictions during elections last year, in which the NLD secured a thumping win, her lawyer Kin Mang Zhao said.
Meanwhile, a Chinese city near the border with Myanmar has imposed a lockdown and started mass testing after 3 coronavirus cases were reported last Monday, with officials rushing to curb another outbreak. Now, it is the second time in 4 months that Ruwili, home to more than 210,000 people, has been locked down after the discovery of cases imported from Myanmar. Ruwili is a major crossing point from Use in neighboring Myanmar, which has seen escalating unrest since the February 1 military coup, raising fears that people will try to flood across the border into China to escape the violence. One of the 3 infected patients was a Myanmar national, according to health authorities in Yunnan province. China closed the main bridge and crossing to Myanmar in March as cases surge across the border. Authorities have also increased patrols in recent months to prevent illegal border crossings and crack down on human trafficking to prevent an influx of refugees. Ruili will test all residents for the virus within 2 days, and all non-essential travel will be banned until further notice, according to the local government. But only one member of each household can leave to buy daily necessities with permission during the testing period. And anyone who wants to leave the city must produce a negative virus test conducted within the past 72 hours, according to the local government.
Singaporean teenager was sentenced to 9 months probation and 40 hours of community service Wednesday for sending Instagram death threats to French footballer Neil Maupay after an English Premier League match. Let's watch this.
Client is relieved to be put on probation. I think he is prepared to put this matter behind him, prepared to focus on his rehabilitation, focus on the next step forward. I think much has been said in court about his remorse. I mean, the remorse is evident. He has written an apology to Mr. Maupay. This will be forwarded to Mr. Maupay directly by the investigation officer.
And here, Singaporean teenager Derek Nang Daren leaving court after he was sentenced to 9 months probation and 40 hours community service for sending death threats to English Premier League footballer Neil Maupay after becoming angry while watching a match. The teenager was angered after watching a collision on television between Maupay and Arsenal goalkeeper Bernd Leno during a match in June last year that led to the goalie being stretchered up in the first half. Brighton's forward later scored the winning goal in a crucial win for the bottom of the table team. Blaming Maupay for the injury and furious at Arsenal's loss, Nang sent several Instagram messages in which he threatened to kill Maupay and his family, according to the court documents.
Now, Malaysians struggling to make ends meet during a worsening coronavirus outbreak have hoisted white flags outside their homes in a desperate plea for help that has swept the country. Authorities are imposing a second strict nationwide lockdown last month in response to a surge in COVID cases, and many low-income workers who live hand-to-mouth have lost their jobs again after a ban on non-essential businesses. Take a look.
That's a phenomenon that underlies desperation. Desperation where the expectation is, the aspiration is that people in the community or NGOs in the community support each other. So what we try to do in responding to the white flag phenomenon in Klang is we provide a balanced diet, meaning that we can provide food for at least about 7 or 8 days, and with a smaller family, maybe about 10 days. And we support that with vegetables and fish as well. And I can tell you, lots of Malaysian families are in distress at this time, lots and lots of them.
Now, the flags, often little more than strips of cotton or T-shirts, have sprung up across or outside homes of the needy around the country in the past week, prompting an outpouring of sympathy and donations from the public. Members of the public are bringing food to households that have signaled their distress, while businesses are also donating, with a noodle maker sending workers to deliver food in the worst-hit Selangor state outside Kuala Lumpur. The popular Malaysian rapper Ultimate also pledged to donate food in a message to his nearly 400,000 Instagram followers. Only essential businesses such as supermarkets and medical clinics have been allowed to operate since last month. Now, a growing desperation is reflected in rising suicides. Police recorded more than 450 in the first 5 months of this year, compared to 631 for all of 2020. And referring to the figures, Malaysia's top health official Noor Hisham Abdullah said that the pandemic had had a huge impact on people's mental health, especially those cut off from support networks of friends and family. Meanwhile, there is little sign of Malaysia's latest outbreak slowing despite the lockdown. Officials reported 7,600 cases, more than 100 deaths last Tuesday.
Foreign investors face difficult choices about operating in Myanmar after the February military coup, with few taking the route of leaving as has Norwegian telecoms group Telenor. Activists have heaped pressure on multinationals to pull out of Myanmar as the death toll from the military crackdown nears 900 and some 200,000 have been forced to flee their homes, according to the UN, which has accused the military junta of committing crimes against humanity. Investors filed into the country after the military relaxed its iron grip in 2011, paving the way for democratic reforms and economic liberalization in the country of more than 50 million people. They poured money into telecommunications, infrastructure, manufacturing, and construction projects. Telenor announced Thursday it was selling its Myanmar subsidiary, which is one of the leading operators in the country with 18 million mobile phone customers. At the end of March, the French renewable energy firm Voltalia, which had been working in Myanmar since 2018 and had a staff of 43, said it was winding up operations due to the political and humanitarian crisis. Shortly after the military takeover, Japan's Suzuki announced it was suspending production at its two Myanmar factories, which produced 13,300 vehicles in 2019, mostly for the local market. Myanmar factories became suppliers of many popular clothing brands over the past decade, but groups like Italy's Benetton stopped placing new orders. Benetton Chief Executive Massimo Renan said the suspension was intended to send a strong and concrete signal.
In other news, a defanged lion trafficked to an upscale neighborhood of the Cambodian capital has been controversially returned to its owner following the unlikely intervention of Prime Minister Hun Sen. Take a look.
Authorities use a fire engine to spray water at people who violate new virus restrictions in the Indonesian city of Semarang. The Southeast Asian nation has seen an unprecedented wave of infections driven by the highly contagious Delta variant, said government officials. Let's watch this.
Kita ini sudah hari ketiga ya di PPKM darurat ada 27 yang kita segel ya. Berarti warga masyarakatnya kebangetan. Terus semua itu yang memang ada kerumunan kita tuh disemprot oleh teman-teman pemadam. Ya. Jadi saya matur nuwun, silakan nanti pihak camat kalau memang kesulitan undang kami, pasti akan kami tertibkan. Kalau tidak mau Semarang itu nanti tambah banyak yang terkena penyakit. Teman-teman jualan diberi waktu.
And finally, in our news, here's a video courtesy of the SCG Foundation from Thailand, as presented during the 15th ASEAN Go NGO Forum on Social Welfare and Development, with the theme Strengthening Family Resilience and Solidarity, Braving the Adversity and Adapting to the New Normal, held last year on September 21 online. Let's take a look.
ถึงทุกคนที่เจอวิกฤตไม่รู้เรื่องนี้จะจบลงเมื่อไหร่นี่ก็จะหมดปีละมันแย่ที่สุดในชีวิตเลยเนาะไม่รู้ว่าตอนนี้ทุกคนเสียอะไรกันไปบ้างแต่ยังไงก็อย่าเพิ่งหมดหวังนะเชฟวันเคยทำงานในภัตตาคารหรูๆก็ต้องปรับตัวมาหัดขายอาหารบนรถเข็นไม่มีผู้ช่วยไม่มีแอร์เหมือนแต่ก่อนตอนแรกแกก็เขินๆแต่แกบอกว่าไม่มีกินเขินกว่าพี่เติร์กเจ้าของบาร์ถูกสั่งปิดเลยต้องปรับร้านมาเริ่มขายกาแฟจริงๆพี่เขาเองก็ไม่ได้เดือดร้อนเท่าไหร่แต่ก็นึกถึงลูกน้องที่ยังต้องรับผิดชอบอยู่พี่นศพลเสียอาชีพช่างในเมืองไปแกบอกว่าเครียดไปก็เท่านั้นเรื่องมันเกิดขึ้นแล้วเลยคิดกลับบ้านไปทำสวนเอาความรู้ช่างมาปรับเล้าไก่ทำเป็นคอนโดไก่สร้างรายได้ดีกว่าฝ้ายแค่อยากจะบอกทุกคนว่าไม่ต้องกลัวนะเราทุกคนมีสิ่งพิเศษที่ธรรมชาติให้มานั่นคือการปรับตัวเราจะปรับตัวได้เองเรียนรู้ได้เองทำมันได้เองและผ่านไปได้เองฝ้ายเองก็ต้องปรับมันมาทั้งชีวิตเหมือนกัน
มาแล้วทุกคนมาแต่งหน้ากันเลยดีกว่านะคะเพื่อไม่ให้การเสียเวลาเนาะฝ้ายก็จะใช้แปรงในการลงแป้งพัฟในวันนี้
ไม่ว่าเราจะเสียอะไรไปแค่ไหนก็ตามถ้าคุณเสียงานเสียเงินหรือกำลังเสียใจหมดหนทางอยู่ในตอนนี้ขอแค่ใจสู้และอดทนอีกไม่นานสมองร่างกายและสัญชาตญาณจะพาเราดิ้นรนผ่านมันไปได้เองถ้ายังไม่สูญเสียลมหายใจเชื่อเถอะยังไงคุณก็จะรอด
Thanks, Ralph, for keeping me company today. You have a safe and great weekend.
My pleasure, Alma. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Reporting from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Ralph Rundle Empire. Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back on Monday. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25.
Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian ang inyong Happy Time Barkada at 12 noon. Alamin ang mga